Hi, friends, and welcome to Only Green. An entomologist with more than a decade of research and teaching experience, Poornima Viswanathan is our guest for the day. Non-invasive documentation of biodiversity is her primary interest, mainly through photography. She's also the associate editor of Malabar Trogon, the newsletter of Malabar Natural History Society. Let's try and understand more about what an entomologist is and more about her activities. Welcome, Poornima, to Only Green.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me on this episode.
Okay, a zoologist and an entomologist, to be very specific. Can you throw some light on what is or who is an entomologist and what exactly are the research works and activities of an entomologist?
Okay, basically an entomologist studies insects. The study of insects is entomology. So after zoology, I just got interested in entomology. So that's how I ended up in the field. And as to what an entomologist does, you have various options. Basic is research. You can do a lot of basic biological research, ecological research, because insects comprise more than 80% of all animal fauna. So they are the most, specious organisms in the animal kingdom. So you can do a lot of research in the area, or you can go into academics. Obviously, teaching is an option. Then there's also agriculture is a main area where insects are a big part, wherein they are not looked at as friends, but as foes mainly, because they kind of do a lot of harm to our monoculture crops. So agriculture is another area where an entomologist services are required, and also industry. So agri-industry is based. So research and industry, main options.
I think you started your career in the agri-industry to begin with.
No, actually, basically most of the research happens in agriculture. So when I was starting out, I didn't ask around much about what options. If I had known, I would have taken up forest entomology or something. So I went into a conventional entomology line. So I took up zoology, and then I ended up in a college of agriculture. So basically their research was something that would feed into the agricultural sector. So, but then I have moved away from that after a point of time.
But then how does it help? I mean, even the agricultural industry or farming as such, how does it help the study of insects?
See, you need to know about an insect's behavior, about its life cycle, about how various climatic factors or how the various host plants interact with the organism. So there are a lot of levels in which you can study the insects, which can be used to reduce the insect population and thus be beneficial to the agriculture. So, for instance, I did my master's on a crop called soybean aphid, which is a big commercial crop in the US. So basically, we were studying how to reduce the soybean infestations on soybean crops. So that is one aspect that I studied. So trying to figure out how we can make better crops, which will, defend themselves or, move the insects away from them. So through various mechanisms. So I don't know if you want me to explain all that, but basically you're trying to get the insect away from it. So you want to know as much about the insect as possible, starting from the identification, which is the basic thing, because if you wrongly identify, then every other step that you take would be wrong. So identification and taxonomy is extremely important in any biological scientific work that you do. So once after that, you study how it interacts with your system, that plant or tree or other animals or whatever. So medical entomology is another field, so which might affect us or our domestic animals and pets, etc. So basically, you have to know the insect in order to try and control it or keep it within bounds.
But then there'll be insects useful for the farming also, right?
Absolutely. So there are beneficials and there are, invasives or detrimental factors. So the thing nowadays, what we have realized is in nature, there is a balance. There is a balance of good and bad people or bad insects or any animal for that sake. That is how the system has been carried on for ages. So when we try and push down a certain insect, it affects a lot of beneficials, which also help us control this bad character. So in the process of applying a pesticide or an insecticide, we are destroying everything. Okay. So face off, you're destroying everything that might help you also. So that is how integrated pest management has come up, that field of integrated pest management, where you understand which are the good insects that help you, which are the bad insects, and try to balance it out, wherein you're trying to keep the bad guys away and then keep the good guys in so that they will help you also, apart from the insecticides.
Okay. Now coming to your current role as the sort of associate editor for the newsletter for Malabar Natural History Society. What are their activities and what are the objectives of this society?
So MNHS is based out of Kozhikode, and it is a network of Kozhikode only.
Okay.
Kozhikode and Calicut. Yes. And it is based of a network of people who are nature enthusiasts, who are researchers, who are teachers, who are scientists, be it at different institutions or at ZSI and university and everywhere. So basically a bunch of nature enthusiasts have come together, and we registered an organization in 2002. Before that also, all the activities that we were doing are happening since the 90s, but then we were formally registered in 2002. And since then we have been having a newsletter called Malabar Trogon. So MNHS generally, it liaises with the forest department and does a lot of work wherein we help in biodiversity monitoring, biodiversity documentation, such as we do a lot of surveys like bird surveys, insects like butterfly surveys. So there have been surveys that have been happening for 2 decades now, such as the RLM bird survey and butterfly survey. Every year it happens on time, and therefore the forest department is very happy that they have a track record on how to manage the forest, because they have data that kind of shows the variations every year. So they have a baseline data. So necessarily we work in the North Kerala region in the various parts, and we do a lot of educational activities also, because a lot of teachers are there in our network, and we also volunteer to go here and there and spread awareness about things. So yeah, that's how I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, MNHS is an NGO, yes. So, and we're all doing volunteer work. It's not like paid work or anything.
There is no funding from the government also for these kind of activities?
No.
Oh, I see. It's
basically the forest department kind of gives us a place to stay and the food while we are doing all these surveys. So ultimately we are just giving out of our passion, we are doing the work, but then they support us during those few days that we are in the forest, and then we give them the data. So it's basically a balance of interests.
So you all move out into the wilderness and do these researches?
Yes, every now and then, yes, depending on how it is scheduled. Yes.
Okay.
And it is only a part-time thing. The Trogon is only a part-time work because it's not there every day. It comes out only 2 to 3 times a year, the newsletter. So, but then it is a well-known, a published thing between birders and, the regular readers. Maybe it's not known really wide and in the country, but then it is a reasonably well established.
It's a digital publication. Or
yes, we have stopped print publication for a while now because we don't have any funding to send people copies. So hopefully we will start it again. But as of now, we have our website and we have all the copies on if anybody wants to read.
Okay. And when we go through your profile, it says non-invasive documentation of the biodiversity through photography. What is this activity and what is the message? I mean, when you document the biodiversity through photographs, what is the message that you're trying to convey?
See, actually, I did that out of my personal choice, because studying insects cannot be done just by photography. So any research, you have to have the sample in your hand, you have to have a microscope, you have to look at it further deep than just a photograph. But then even when I was studying, I was really kind of sad about having to dissect animals and cut them open. So that was kind of very much hurting for me. So while I was studying, I didn't have an option. I had to do all these things if I have to have the degree. So once I started working, I realized I could, have some conditions for myself, that I won't kill them unnecessarily unless it is absolutely necessary. So I have tried to keep all my work in a sort of non-destructive way. So photography is the easiest thing you can think of. where you don't necessarily annoy the insect beyond taking a few photographs.
Okay.
So that's how I thought I will do that. And whatever works come my way in that respect, I do. Otherwise, I try to kind of gently decline the opportunity. Yes.
But then the photograph is enough to study an insect?
I think for the most part, at least from an education perspective, or like a general, if you're doing an urban biodiversity documentation, most of the insects are well known. You don't have to really catch them and hurt them to kind of know it. So unless you find some organism which you really cannot identify, or which you feel it is something new in this region, or you can really not figure out what it is, then it is worth collecting. Otherwise, collection can be avoided in most instances. Because when you collect through, be it netting or other means of collection, so many insects come in, and most of them die also. And you might want one or a few when you're working with a particular group, but then all the rest may be useful for others, but then you've killed them anyways. So I feel it is a loss. For me personally, it kind of doesn't feel great. So that is probably why I didn't pursue research in places like ZSI, or hardcore scientific institutes.
Okay. I mean, you work somewhere on a full-time basis, or is it only the freelance work? I mean, what are
No. I've been doing this freelance thing only for the past 2 or 3 years. I have worked in a couple of NGOs. One in zoo outreach organization in Coimbatore, on butterflies. There was a project, and then I worked for 1.5 years with the Keystone Foundation in Kotagiri, where they had pollination related work. So basically, we had some work on coffee pollination and also vegetable pollination, to understand how forests benefit agriculture. So if there are forests, you might have more insect diversity, more pollination, better yield, better outcome for your crop. So we did some work like that. So one of them got published. So I have done full-time work, but as of 2018 or so, I kind of decided, due to some personal reasons, that this might be the better way for me to have some time on my own.
But when it comes to freelance, what are the kind of assignments that you take up?
Basically, documentation work. So with my previous employer, Keystone Foundation, I have been a consultant. So when they have some project which relates to insects, they call me. So I go for like 10 days or a week to the field site. I go, for example, I did a soil study for them, where you try to understand what the different organisms are there living in the soil. So things like that.
Okay. Otherwise, I mean, you don't take up fresh assignments.
Whichever comes my way, yes, I do take. But
Okay.
since the COVID thing, I've been totally free. So I've been just involved in whatever I feel like doing, which is documenting biodiversity around my house, and
Okay.
things like that.
Okay. How can someone reach out to you? You have a website or any other? I mean, I think you have an Instagram handle, which I will share in the
Yeah.
description. Other than that,
Okay.
any specific way that people can reach out to you in case some kind of assignment needs to be taken up?
Sure. I mean, they can write to me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I have a LinkedIn account, and I think I have put my email on it, poornima.august@gmail.com.
Okay.
So that email would be fine if anybody wants to reach me.
Okay, fine. Now coming to your message, I mean, to the youth who I mean, who will be interested in doing your kind of work. What will be your message in the field of biodiversity, in the field of insect study?
Yeah, I think a general message which I would like to request to everybody is to just be open to everything that is alive around you, because I feel most people are just walking around in their, mundane lives, just not looking at things and seeing that a butterfly is there, or a bird is there, a tree is there. Nobody seems to observe anything. So I think it is high time we remember that we are a part of everything that is there on this earth, and that man is not separate from all the other organisms. So that is one message. And So we have to reconnect with nature, which a lot of people, especially urban folks, have like they seem to have forgotten that memory that we are a part of this whole ecological system. And for those who want to pursue entomology or zoology, I think it's quite easy in the sense like zoology is obviously you can go take a bachelor's degree and start out like that. But for entomology, the options are to take up an agriculture degree or a wildlife science. And only in the master's level can you go completely into entomology as a, a core subject. So that would be one thing. And of course, you can get in touch with a lot of people like me who are there on Facebook and all kinds of social media for advice. Because as a kid, I did not go ask anybody, which kind of cost me time and money. And I had to learn my lesson the hard way. So I think the young folks should kind of open up and like ask people like me as to what their options are, what their interests are, and then channel their steps in an easier way other than the roundabout learn your lesson
Okay.
the hard way. Yeah,
So, I mean, putting it in a nutshell, it is to connect with the nature, being mindful about the nature, and understand about the coexistence.
absolutely. It'll
So,
give you peace of mind, and you will also be thoughtful when you do things that kind of are hurtful to the planet. You can live sustainably. People don't
okay.
seem to remember that.
Thanks a lot, Poornima, and wish you all the very
Thank
best.
you.
Looking
Thank you
forward
so
for
much.
more to be in touch and get
Sure.
more input from you.
I'm
Thank you.
glad you kind of got in touch with me via Instagram. It was a surprise. So thank you.